Welcome to today's KMWorld webinar, brought to you by eGain. I'm Mary D. Ojala, Conference Program Director, Information Today, Inc. I will be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled, Expand the Business Value of SharePoint with a Knowledge Hub. Now, before we get started, I want to explain how you can be a part of the broadcast. There will be a question and answer session, so if you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been selected during the show, you will receive an email response to it within a few days. Plus, all viewers will be entered to win a $100 Amazon gift card just for viewing today's webinar. And now to introduce our speakers for today, Arvind Gopal, VP Product Management, eGain, Happy Minocha, VP Application Development, eGain. And now, let me pass the event over to Arvind Gopal, VP Product Management, eGain. Go ahead, Arvind.
Thank you, Mary D. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. Before we jump into the content of today, I just want to spend a couple minutes introducing eGain. We have been in business since 1997. We're headquartered in Sunnyvale, California, the heart of the Silicon Valley. And we are a customer engagement automation company. We basically, our solution helps make customer engagement easy through efficient use of knowledge management and artificial intelligence. Our industry focuses are enterprise B2C with focus on the financial services, telco, retail, health care, and government verticals. So today we'd like to talk to you a little bit about the state of enterprise content and why we believe it is chaos. Would also like to share with you details of the eGain Knowledge Hub and how it can help tame some of that chaos. Also how it works well with SharePoint. We'll follow that up with a quick demo of the eGain Knowledge Hub working with SharePoint. And we'll also share some of the client successes that we've seen in the market recently. We'll finish up with a Q&A. So let's start by taking a look at the enterprise content. And what I want to start with is the big number that is there on the screen. We create in enterprises approximately 100 petabytes of information every month. That is a lot of information that is created. And that is information created in SharePoint alone. Now, just looking at that number, you can realize how difficult it will be if you were trying to find that one piece of information that you really need. And it's not just how much information we create. It is also how that information is created. Oftentimes in enterprises, the information is created by either business units, functional units, or departments that are fairly siloed. So they're created within their systems. They follow their own processes. They have different schedules of how they are updated, how they are maintained. There may be different versions of the same information available across the enterprise. So essentially, the information itself is siloed. Often it's scattered across the business units, and it could be inconsistent. And because we are continuously increasing the amount of information we create, the problem's only getting worse. Now let's take a look at what the impact of this is. In a survey done by IDC, it was found that knowledge workers spend approximately 20% of time looking for information in the enterprise. Now imagine that scenario when an agent is on a call with a customer, a potentially irritated customer, and you're trying to solve the problem, but you have to ask the customer to wait while you go and find that information the customer is looking for. It's an immediate savings that you can have if you can present that information easily to the agent without having the agent go look for it. This is a different survey that was sponsored by eGain. We were looking for pain points for customer-facing employees and agents. Well, what was interesting was 65% of the people surveyed pointed to problems related to finding the answer. And this includes, the 26% who had trouble just finding the right answer for the questions, 14% who had trouble finding the right version of the answer, and also people who had trouble just having systems that had all this information in one place, so they had to jump through multiple systems. So it's a set of problems in the enterprise, but the essence is it is difficult to find all of those answers. It's difficult to find the one answer that you're looking for the questions as they come through. This is a different way of looking at the same information. This was a survey done by Gartner, and we were looking at agent tools and how agent tools help or do not help the agents. Again, the results were similar. 64% of agents complained that they either did not have the right tools to find knowledge, or they did not have the tools that would guide them to the right piece of information. Only 36% actually said they had at least the tools in place. It is no wonder then that 84% of the contact center agents who were surveyed said that they actually hate the desktop tools. So how do we tame some of this chaos that is created by a lot of content that exists in the enterprise? We're going to take a look at the eGain Knowledge Hub and how it will help in this situation. But before we get into the Knowledge Hub itself, let's take a look at the primary difference between content management, and knowledge management. Because that is the basis of why the chaos exists and how we can get to a easier model of retrieving content. So content management systems, these are the traditional systems that exist in a lot of enterprises. SharePoint is one of them. They are absolutely great at enabling people to create content. They're absolutely great at enabling people to collaborate with content. They're great at managing documents, managing content. That is the area of focus for these systems. Knowledge management systems, on the other hand, focus on the end user. So if you look at good knowledge management systems, the focus is on the questions that the knowledge management system needs to answer. It focuses on what are the questions that people will ask, what is the information people are looking for, and then how do we get them to that piece of information. So with content management systems, oftentimes you will have a simple search which can get you to the content. But again, when you have a lot of content, potentially duplicate information, potentially multiple versions of it, a simple search can only get you so far. And if you look at knowledge management systems, you will have many different ways to get to the content. This will include guidance, which will step you through a series of questions or series of steps, which will get you to the content. It may include conversational AI. It will definitely include advanced search, which will include features like faceted searching or federated search, which can pull in information from different sources. Again, going back to the focus of what a knowledge management system wants to do is to get you to the content, not necessarily just create content. And the last piece is guidance. Most content management systems that we have seen don't come with any step-by-step guidance, whereas knowledge management systems, step-by-step guidance and conversational guidance are core to the capabilities. When you do have step-by-step guidance, you also have the ability to do other things like check for compliance. So if you know the steps, for example, that an agent has to follow in terms of when they are solving a problem, you can then look at parts of the steps and say at this step the agent is required to do X, Y, and Z, and you can monitor that, you can report on that, and you can ensure compliance within the contact center. So that's again something that the knowledge management system can allow you to do. So the big difference between chaos, which is a lot of content that gets created, and content that's easily available is the way you look at it. If you're looking at it as content and content management, or are you looking at it in terms of what is knowledge? Only content that is findable in an easy fashion is knowledge. So moving on into the Knowledge Hub. When you look at Knowledge Hub, think of it as the central piece that brings all of these things together. You will have in an enterprise various content systems that are sitting across the enterprise, which different teams are using. There will be processes, there will be templates, there will be compliance details, etc. The Knowledge Hub is really the central piece that will bring all of these together. So it has the ability to connect to all of the content sources within the enterprise. It has the ability to publish all the content that it has collected from these content sources to all the different endpoints within the enterprise that need the content. It has the ability to set up and enforce rules around the content. It has the ability to bring workflows in. It has the ability to personalize content. It can add a layer of artificial intelligence. It can add a layer of guidance. And it has the ability to track all of this information so that you can continuously refine the content and make it easier for people to get to it. Now, the Knowledge Hub is not just content, though. The content is one part of the Knowledge Hub. The Knowledge Hub also has the ability to do AI-driven conversations. It needs to have access to a 360-degree context of the customer or the person you're trying to service with the content. So it has the ability to deliver the right content to that person. It has the ability to create interactive process flows. It has the ability to personalize. And it will have the ability to connect to all the various systems within the enterprise. So it's not just content that's held within the Knowledge Hub. It really is again, as I said in the beginning, it really is the central place that brings everything together in the enterprise. So you have a one-stop shop for knowledge that people can go to. Diving a little bit deeper into the Knowledge Hub, and this is the architecture of the eGain Knowledge Hub itself. So the central stack is the Knowledge Hub, right? You have the Knowledge Hub, which is multilingual. It has the ability to personalize. It brings in its own taxonomies. It has guidance, etc. It also comes with analytics, which allows you to measure. It has dashboards, and has the ability to slice and dice information, so you can continuously improve the knowledge. So that's the middle stack. On the left side is all the different content sources you have in the enterprise. And depending on what sources of content are available in the enterprise, you need to have different strategies to bring content into the Knowledge Hub. So for example, if you have a content system that a team is using, they have a set process for how content is created. They have workflows in place, they have approvals in place, and the team is used to using that knowledge system. You don't necessarily want to replace it. It's a working system. So you might choose to mirror that content from that system into the Knowledge Hub So you can now layer it with personalization, you can layer it with AI, you can layer it with guidance. And if you have another system, which probably is an older system, doesn't have the necessary capabilities that you need, is something that you want to sunset, then you might consider migrating all of that content over to the Knowledge Hub. And you may also have other systems which hold information that is not central to the purposes of the Knowledge Hub, but it's valuable information still. So you may just want to leave the information in those systems and federate out and pick up the information from those systems directly when it's needed. So you may federate the search out of those systems, or you may decide to go in and crawl the content in the systems and present search results to your end users. So again, depending upon what content and processes are available in those enterprise systems, you need a different strategy, and a good Knowledge Hub needs to support different strategies for bringing content into the Knowledge Hub. One of the things we've realized working over our 20-25 years in this industry is enterprises are always going to have a lot of different content systems. It is not practical to try and replace all of it with a central hub. So you need a hub that has the ability to work with all of these systems in a nice way. Now, on the right side is the publishing aspect of the hub. Now, getting the content out to the various endpoints. You may choose to do that with branded portals that people can come into. You may choose to do that with personalized widgets. You may even choose to do that with APIs that can extract the right piece of content and present that to the end user. You may also have conversational AI that looks at the content. So the Knowledge Hub really, again, is the central piece that brings all of these things together. Now, I'm going to pause here and hand over to my colleague, Happy, to talk about how the Knowledge Hub will help tame some of that chaos in SharePoint and go through our connector for SharePoint. Happy, over to you.
Thank you, Arvind, and hello, everyone. So yes, I think Arvind stated out the problem really nicely. Like, what is, there is a chaos in terms of the content creation, and all of these organizations have been, creating a lot of content, right? These are tens of thousands of users who have been creating content in different repositories. So I'm going to talk about specifically on the SharePoint Online and how the eGain Knowledge Hub seamlessly integrate with SharePoint. So, while working with various customers, and most of these organizations have, multiple internal repositories of the information which are being used by customer service teams, field teams, and even for internal communication. And SharePoint is, one of the most common repositories the customers have been using, and they have been using over the years and over many versions. And the content has, grown into these into the SharePoint, but hardly there was any governance around organizing the content. When we are talking about the enterprise users, and as I said, there are tens of thousands of them, and you cannot really control the level of information by document or the content management system. You really need a knowledge management solution who can help in a complete knowledge lifecycle, which is from the opportunity creation to review and then applying the knowledge governance. So now you have information which is in SharePoint, and that is scattered across not one site but multiple SharePoint sites, and each line of business has created their own repository as well as the different sites they are maintaining. So we need to bring this information in front of the users at the right time and with the right context, and that is what Knowledge Hub for SharePoint does. And we have worked with various customers, migrating them from SharePoint to eGain, and the business do not want to spend months of the development cycle, and also want to save dollars in this project. And speed is more important than ever in any business transformation project. So what we did is we came up with this inbuilt connector with Knowledge Hub, which has a rich set of features, work with Knowledge Hub and bring the right agent experience to the users. And they do not feel that they are searching the content outside of a Knowledge Hub. The benefits are, you have a unified interface, essentially the less number of windows opened by the agent, and no need to search for different sites. You search only once, and you can preview the content. You have a different content type support, and you do not need to download files on your system, only when it is necessary. And here is a quick snapshot of how it looks. The SharePoint content looks within eGain Knowledge Hub. And we are going to cover the use case in detail during the demo. And here user is searching the information related to the mortgage. And as user searches for something, it goes to all configured SharePoint sites and get the information right in front of the users. You can see there are two sections. One, the content is coming from the eGain Knowledge Hub and coming from the SharePoint. So in general, what we recommend our customer is that, bring the top content which is used heavily to Knowledge Hub and structure it in a way that it provides the next best action and provide the right level of guidance. And some of the content remains in external repositories such as SharePoint, but that content is also searchable and from within the same same user interface. And if you click on the document from the SharePoint, user is not taken to the SharePoint site, but open inline. You can zoom in, zoom out, and get the information you want. Okay, so but we generally get a lot of common questions that how can I consume this eGain knowledge and how it works with other systems. So it is important that any application or any knowledge application you are choosing, it must sit well with other applications, right? You should be able to plug and play the application in the shortest amount possible. You should not be building the new application, but essentially composing them using the existing dots or the business capabilities. And that's what the eGain composable experience platform does. It essentially connects the dots, and the platform comes with a rich set of the APIs and the events and also the embeddable component. APIs and the events are the centerpieces of our solution. It allows you to build the new experiences, and embeddable user interfaces allow you to compose these experiences using the built-in rich component. And SharePoint is essentially one of those components. Along with that, you have SDK and the reference code implementations, and it comes with the right level of security standards. And some of you may know that eGain Cloud is FedRAMP certified and can be used for local, state, and federal government solution. So the security is one of our top priority. And then it has come with the eGain Marketplace, which is essentially there are multiple connectors which like SharePoint, and you can use, if you are using different solution, you can use it with them. You can use the eGain Knowledge Hub with these solutions as well. So, and you may be using CRM system, you may be using omnichannel desktop, and essentially the contact center agents really need the right level of information while customer is on the call. So it is very time sensitive. So what you have, what you are seeing on the screen is, eGain Knowledge Hub works with all, I would say mostly use the CRM systems such as Salesforce, Microsoft, ServiceNow, or the SAP, and also the contact center solutions such as Cisco, Avaya, Amazon, Genesys, Five9, and also in future it would be available for Talkdesk. And there are other solutions if we are using, we have essentially integrated this rich set of connectors pretty much out of the box, and it can be used, just by doing, drag and drop functionality, rather than writing, months of effort developing these integrations. Now I'm going to walk you through the demo. Essentially, I'm going to cover the two scenarios, the first with the voice call, and then through the chat channel. So here I have a voice call coming into the agent desktop, and here is the sole button, which an agent can click on it, and it takes essentially the context of that call and search the Knowledge Hub and brings the right level of information. What I'm going to show first is the guided process. The guided process is essentially a step-by-step guide of what you should do next, right on the call. Agent needs that information rather than struggling through or building it right on the call. And what you are seeing is it has already bootstrapped the search. It has brought what is the customer information was available in another system like in IVR. And you can kind of bootstrap with the product types, the categories, and the type of the call. And here customer has called about a claims process, and he's guided through a set of questions. As agent answers that, it essentially takes to the right level of information at the right time. That is, so here the customer Mary Davis is presented with it requires a in-person appointment, and that information is shared with the agent, and agent can attach that information for compliance purpose for that call. At the same time, agent can send this transcript to the preferred channel of customer. So the next one, the next scenario we are going to talk about, when the customer is connecting through a live chat channel, and here is Rachel Hansen. She wants to know, it's a very generic question: what type of payment you accept, right? What are the different form of payments? So the chat comes, and I'm going to cover two different questions. One is about the payment, and one when it is a complex, which is the information is not present in the eGain Knowledge Hub. So while agent greets the customer, you can see on the right hand side the knowledge is automatically, with the context of this chat conversation, the knowledge is automatically searched without any click, and user can simply attach this information in the chat conversation. You can use different media type, and there are, of course, it is about the consumption which we are showing, but there is a whole knowledge management life cycle processes you can apply to this knowledge. As I said earlier, about creating the content as well as applying the standard workflows and review processes to ensure that the right information is presented or published to the end customer. So now the second question, what customer is asking, hey, what is the auto claim process? And this is probably not present for this demo. We assume that this information is not present in the eGain Knowledge Hub, but present in the SharePoint side. So here you see on you have the search results coming from SharePoint, and agent should be able to open that content within the same window, while rather than switching the app, switching the application, and that saves a lot of time, right? That's what the one of the key aspect is how to improve the agent handle time, and that's what the SharePoint integration brings in. And what you can see is you can use as much as real estate. You can minimize the windows as needed. You can zoom in, zoom out, and depending on the content type, you may be able to search the content within the SharePoint document, and essentially serve that conversation when it is needed right through the same interface. And there are other there are other document types which are supported. There is a rich set of essentially different content type. The next one I'm going to show about is um, um, the PowerPoint presentation. Here you would see that the content is open right here. You can you should be able to move from one slide to another, and it basically a guided process which is sitting somewhere out, and you can download that content and open it as well on if you need to send this information out. Essentially the key thing is that you are able to search the content from this SharePoint repositories. You can also configure, there is an administration side of it where you can simply create a client app in the SharePoint and plug that information into eGain Knowledge Hub, and you do not need to spend any time doing the development of the solution. All of this is built in within the solution itself. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about some of the examples which our customers are using in production with this SharePoint. So first of the customer is an insurance giant in US. One of the key issue they were facing is they were using 60 plus SharePoint repositories, right? And this is one of their business unit I'm talking about, which is the risk management. And the different type of users are interacting with this content. The underwriters, support teams, the client services team. So and we move some of their content into eGain Knowledge Hub, but then there is a lot of content which they still continue to use and continue to search. And the solution was how to find the right level of information while the agent is on the call. And the solution is our integration with the SharePoint. So it is essentially helping all of these 1,000 plus users to get the right information while they are on the call, and helping their customers. And the next customer I'm going to talk about, it is one of the top 20 global airline. It's one of the top 20 airlines in the world, and agents are working from the different hubs in the world and across different geographies, and everyone is using their own SharePoint sites, as well as there were some global SharePoint sites were set up. The key aspect is no one wants to spend months in migrating the content and restructure it into a new system, right? So however, our recommendation has always been is like, hey, look at the top call type, right? Look at the top call volume, and let's move only 5% of the content to start with and restructure and provide the guidance around it. But rest of it, you do not need to spend an effort immediately, right? So some of that content may be in use, maybe not be in use. You can only bring the content what is needed, but rest of it you should be able to federate and search directly from the SharePoint integration. The third customer is it's one of the large asset management organization. Their biggest challenge was the findability, right? The findability it was a big issue for them, and with the mix of federation and with different SharePoint sites, they were able to get the content in front of the user, and also expose some of that content, but they were able to migrate to the end customer as well. So essentially this even if you are using multiple SharePoint site, you should be able to slice and dice which site should be available for which type of users. So all of that is can be done through the configuration and can be easily used right within the Knowledge Hub. And one common ask we continue to see is that the knowledge lifecycle implementation requires essentially a top-down approach, and the investment in the centralized knowledge is important, right? So if you intend to improve agent, customer, and the business experience, the executives need to know what is the outcome from the KM implementation and whether the solution is right for us or not. So I have essentially have two offers for both of these type of questions. One is the Egan value model. You can determine what value and what outcome you can get from a knowledge solution, and how this value is built up over time. So this is a no-brainer. Essentially, if you are looking for a knowledge solution, you should look at Egan value model and determine before even implementation, looking at your data, your contact center information or your user information, we can provide you a value model which kind of provides a good outcome-oriented model which can be used to influence your management. The second offer I have is the innovation in 30 days, and I have not seen similar offers in the SaaS world. Simply put, it's essentially a guided project. We, Egan, will do all the heavy lifting. We will use your content, we'll use your use case, and show you the new experience. So you have been doing something today, and which you are not happy with, and within 30 days, we'll create you a new experience with your content and use case, and essentially let you play with the Egan Knowledge Hub. So that is the confidence we have in our solution, and we feel that can create a lot of value in your environment, and you can try it with without any cost. It's a free project for, and we intend to complete it within 30 days. The last, I want to personally invite all of our attendees for our annual conference, Soul 22, on October 11th and October 12th at MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And we have speakers from Fortune 500, analysts, and this is going to be an exciting event. We will have live demos for our Knowledge Hub, Conversation Hub, and Analytics Hub, and a lot of new innovations. So looking forward to have you all attend this event, and this is you would be able to learn more about Egan solutions. I would like to hand it over to the moderator for any question and answers we have from the audience.
Okay, well, thank you, Happy. Thank you, Arvind. And yes, we do have some questions. Let me remind our audience that if you have a question, do put it into that question box and click submit. Arvind, I think this first one that came in looks like it would be for you. And our viewer says, we have a lot of content in SharePoint across the enterprise. Do you guys keep all the content in SharePoint, or do you move some of it to eGain? Do you have a content strategy?
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, that is a very important question. And I think I explained part of that in one of the slides. Depending on what the content is, where the content is situated in the enterprise, and the processes around the content, we have different strategies to address it. So, for example, some of the content, if it is in a place where you want to sunset it, we would migrate that content over and you can sunset that system. Mm-hmm. If it is content that is well set, there is a process around it, there's a team that's working well with that process, then we don't want to necessarily migrate that content over. We can potentially mirror it over and still give you the value that you would get from AI and from personalization and everything else that you would get from the hub. Mm-hmm. And for other pieces of content, we could just federate out. So we have different strategies based on the type of content in the SharePoint repository to address them.
Okay, we have another question here. I think this is yours, Happy. You mentioned expert guidance in your Innovation in 30 Days pilot. And what exactly did you mean by expert guidance?
So the expert guidance is essentially, we have over 20 years of experience in the knowledge, management solution. So what we do essentially in Innovation in 30 Days, we bring in, depending on your use case, and what the outcomes you want to achieve. We bring in the right level of expertise. We look essentially convert your processes into a knowledge guidance so that you can see, the level of complexity you face today, and how you can solve it through the knowledge guidance. As well as we will have subject matter expertise on, depending on the vertical or depending on the industry, we bring in the right level of experts into that 30-day period. So you would be able to know, all about a knowledge management solutions. And that's what we do within, and we have a crafted agenda for these projects, which will essentially create a confidence in the knowledge solution like ours within those the trial period.
Okay. Arvind, do you monitor compliance in real time when the agent is interacting with the customer? Or do you just monitor or also help enforce?
So we can do all of the above, right? And one of the advantages of having a guided process that steps the agents through what they need to do. So you saw some of that in the demo that Happy shared. So you had those areas where it said, say this or do this. So when we get into those places, we can then ensure that the agent is actually saying those, the agent's doing those things that are necessary. And we can monitor, record, report on it. We can also take action on it in terms of potentially escalating that to a supervisor if the agent is not following the directions that are set out to them. So yes, we can monitor for compliance inline, in band as the conversation is happening.
And I would assume that how you deal with these situations depends on the company itself. It's not necessarily your decision.
Absolutely. It is completely configurable solution. So it really depends on the company and what they want to see as what they want to do in terms of compliance. And depending on the industry, for example, in financial services industries, the compliance is a much bigger deal than it would probably be in retail. So you would see people wanting to enforce it. You would see people wanting to potentially stop a conversation before it goes down a track that they don't want it to go down, etc. Whereas potentially other verticals would just want to monitor and report on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see, what else have we got here? Could you share some more about the user experience outputs? It sounds like they pull from the same repositories, but how is this information served up differently to different users? Is it facilitated through different metadata on the various pieces of content? And do you have any examples? That's a very long-winded question there.
Yes, but it's a very interesting question.
Read some of that?
No, I think I can answer. I can take that question. It's a very interesting question because that's kind of key to a knowledge hub. You do need to get the knowledge to the right people, and you need to get the right knowledge to them. So when we say it is a central repository that it's the knowledge hub that we're pulling the information from, but we have different layers of personalization, of guidance, of AI on top of it that can determine what is the right content that needs to be pushed or published to a particular endpoint. And let's take one example. Let's take personalization, for example, right? The personalization module would depend on who the user is that is trying to access the content, what is the particular situation that they are in. So if the personalization module knows, for example, that the person is a novice agent that is serving a particular kind of query, the customer has contacted the organization X number of times. So all of these pieces go into what is the context that is required to answer that question. So the personalization module will take into consideration those pieces and apply the level of personalization and push the content out. So for example, the novice agent would probably see a lot more detail and a lot more hand-holding than an expert agent who would probably just be shown an answer and would be expected to explain it to the customer because that's the fastest route. So hopefully that makes sense.
So your expert agent, the assumption is that person is already sufficiently well versed in whatever
Exactly.
knowledge area it is, that they don't need any additional. Otherwise, they're probably insulted that they have to read something that they could just say.
Exactly. And the end result is you want to make it as efficient as possible for the agent, right? So you don't want to give them too much that it gets in their way. You really want to make their job as easy as possible. So if it is just
Sure.
that one piece of information that they need so they can get done with it and move to the next one, that's what we want to give them. Or if they need more help, that is what we want to provide them. And those are the different kinds of things that we can do.
Okay. Very sensible. We've got another one here. Do you have any use cases where frontline customer service people interface with operational people to set up projects to resolve complex problems? This sounds like it might go beyond what's in your Knowledge Hub. That would be going to something additional?
Yeah. I could read that question in a couple of different ways. So we do have, so we do have frontline customer service people interfacing with operational people in the context of solving a problem. So that's definitely something that we can support in terms of a communication where the customer's having a conversation with the agent while the agent's looking up information, as well as having potentially a conversation with an SME that uh, can help resolve the problem. So that's definitely a use case that we have seen and we have set up. We can, and it can be done in a few different ways. We can have it as two separate conversations, one with the agent and the customer, one with the SME. If you really want to protect the SME and don't want to expose the SME to the customer, we have some situations like that. Or if the SME is also part of the agent pool, then we have the ability to kind of bring them into the conversation, add them to the conversation, and together they can resolve the problem. So we have a couple of different ways we can set that up.
Yeah, I would think your first example in the demo about just what form of payment do you require, that's a pretty simple question, which wouldn't need any additional information. But I can see where if you get into something that's a little more complex, you might need some additional information that's not pre-configured.
Right. And so in most cases, we'd like to. So one of the advantages having a tool like Guidance is a lot of the information that the SMEs have or the experts have, we can pull that information into the tool. So even if the agent doesn't have that information, the tool is perfectly capable of stepping them through and resolving that query without having to bring in an SME. So these kind of situations typically happen when it's completely unexpected. Then yes, we have the ability to bring the SME in.
Okay, all right. Very good. Let's see, what else we got here? Oh, Happy. How long does it take to set up the integrated solution?
So good question. As I said, this is inbuilt connector, no development. The only thing we need to do is essentially configure the connector, connect to your SharePoint system, which involves a certain set of steps and essentially setting up an app or client app within SharePoint, and then sharing those app information or credentials within eGain administration screen, which you should be able to do it on your own. Essentially, in short, it will take hours rather than months of the implementation time. So depending on, because the SharePoint administrator needs to do certain steps, and then certain steps need to be done at eGain. So I would say it would, in the past of our, experience with working with the customer, it took, within a week, we have set up the SharePoint working for customers. Even though the actual work is of ours, but it can be set up within a week to be ready. It won't take months to do any development work. I hope that answers the question.
I would somehow guess that in today's fast-moving environment, people would like it to take the least amount of time possible.
That's true, and that's one of the key reasons for creating such connectors with the all the rich functionality built into the solution. None of the business users wants to spend months of development cycle to create something new, right? And they want to kind of absorb what the rest of the organizations are doing. So these connectors kind of bring all that industry experience into built-in within the solution itself.
Yeah, very sensible. Right. Well, that is all the time we have for questions today. And we apologize that we were unable to get to all of your questions. But as I stated earlier, all questions will be answered via email. And I would like to thank our speakers today, Arvind Gopal, VP Product Management eGain, and Happy Minocha, VP Application Development eGain. If you would like to review this event or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, you will receive an email with the URL to view the webinar once the archive is posted. If you would like a PDF of the deck, go to the handout section once the archive is live. And just for participating in today's event, you could win this $100 Amazon gift card. The winner will be announced on August 31st, and we will reach out via email if you are selected as this month's winner. Thank you again for joining us.